What does it say? Stop your genocide against our white nations. He has a sign on his briefcase.
Dude, you live in Norway. That's the whitest place you could ever be.
Not white enough.
You're going to be fine. You're going to be the last bastion of whiteness when Norway is like the Minas Tirith. It looks like one of my nephews. That is my nephew. Shout out to Peyton.
I feel like there must have been like pictures of him not looking evil, but they just picked the most evil looking picture of him as a kid.
They always do that. They always do that.
They have to other the villain in all these stories. It can't just be that he was mentally disabled.
Yeah, you can't give information. You have to craft a narrative. And part of that narrative is getting the correct visuals.
Well, when you're telling people the news, you have to make sure to turn a profit. So this is a young Breivik. We're going to start off with a little bit of background on his childhood. His parental situation, I think, is relevant. He was the son of Jens Breivik, who was a Norwegian diplomat. He worked in the Norwegian embassy in France. His mother, Wench, had issues, man. She always suffered from depression, and she was very depressed after having Anders. Wench Bering had a troubled childhood, unsurprisingly. When she was 8, her father died. Her mother developed polio and became increasingly verbally abusive in her childhood. She had a half-brother who would beat the shit out of her. She had to hide from him, and she would wander around the streets, like pissing on herself and stuff. She tells about it. This is a quote from the book. The book, by the way, is One of Us, the story of Anders Breivik and the Massacre in Norway by Åsne Seierstad. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but... So here's a quote from the book about Wench, Anders Breivik's mother. Wench would lie in bed at night, twisting her head from side to side to shut out the sounds of the house. The worst of these were the thuds of her mother moved about. She used 2 stools to drag herself across the floor. She raised them one by one, leaning her body on them in turn as she went, bringing each of them down on the floorboards with a thump. Wench lay there, hoping her mother would one day come to love her, but her mother merely became ever more demanding and dependent. Her brother ever more brutal. Her mother began to complain of hearing voices in her head. And when a man moved in, Wench's mother accused her daughter of trying to steal him. So she left her home at 17 years old.
Yeah, this is like the kind of information that it always comes out whenever a case like this happens. And I really don't know how relevant it is. It's certainly salacious, and it crafts the narrative of his upbringing, but I don't know. I hear stuff like this, and I'm like, yeah, there's plenty of people that go through pretty fucking rough childhoods like this and turn out to be fairly well-adjusted adults.
Well, I think it's a combination, you know, it's nature and nurture. It's a combination of your genetics, your epigenetics, which also involves your upbringing, how you're raised. It's a combination of factors all coming together.
Sure.
I would say that it definitely played a part, though, because you can tell some of the abusive situations that Wench was in when she was a child played out in Anders' life when he was a young fella as well. So,
yeah, he kind of like manifested the same sorts of abuse that I guess was dealt to him, is what he was, or that she did.
Yeah, it's like you hear stories of like people who are abused, and it turns out that the person who was abusing them was abused themselves the exact same way, you know, either physically or sexually or even verbally. You know, even when you're raised in an abusive environment, you still wind up repeating those patterns just because for whatever reason, the human brain is not able to overcome that indoctrination. I get it. I see myself acting out the way my fucking mother did when I was being raised, you know, in terms of just the verbal outbursts.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day. We've got somebody that lives on the road, and it's this woman that's just constantly angry and yelling at her kids and yelling at her husband. And I was like, I've known people like that they're just always yelling, and that's because their parents always screamed at them, and then now their kids are screaming at their kids. And it's just weird how these cycles get going and how they just perpetuate, and how, I guess, malleable we are to the traumas that are inflicted on us as children. And there's a very good chance it's going to be perpetuated, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Because I'll catch myself like doing the same shit that, you know, I should know better not to do, like fucking screaming at my daughter. Of course, now she's getting old enough. She just screams back at me. She's not really scared anymore. So,
yeah.
So Wench was investigated by the Child Welfare Services on multiple occasions for reports of abuse from neighbors, mostly. I would guess that these days she would be diagnosed as bipolar. That's what it seems like. She was obviously suffered from bouts of serious depression, and she also was a hard worker. Like she was a nurse. She worked her ass off. She was a single mother. She had 2 kids, and she was also successful. She lived in the better parts of town. She liked, she was upper middle class. She had previously been with Jens, who was a Norwegian diplomat. She was used to a higher standard of living, and she worked her ass off. But she was also into the men. She liked the men coming around a lot. Neighbors would always report that there was men coming over odd hours of the night. They would also report that she would leave the kids alone for hours and hours at night sometimes.
Just like Forrest Gump. The guy comes over and he hears him up in the room. Never mind.
Yeah.
That's a deep cut.
Yeah.
The guy walks out and he goes,
I never got that as a kid, man. When I first saw Forrest Gump, I probably was 11 years old or something.
Yeah. It was one of them things, like, I didn't recognize it until watching it much later as an adult. Right. I'm like, oh, they were having sex with his mom.
She applied to have both of her children fostered by the state. She told social services that she wanted them to, quote, go to the devil. She claimed Anders was clingy and demanding. She would sleep with him in the bed with her, like baby him, and then complain that he was too close to her or he was smothering her. It was a very weird relationship between these two. Here's a quote from the book. He would hit her and Elizabeth. If she told him off, he would merely smirk. If she shook him, he would just shout, "It doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt." This is from a report by the social services. In adulthood, Anders would complain that Wench was, quote, standing too close to him. He would force her to walk behind him when they went to town because she was embarrassing him. Weird stuff, man.
Well, yeah, she done banged all the shopkeepers. I'd be embarrassed too. Jeez, Mom, chill.
No, it wasn't that. There was something weird about he didn't like her being too close to him. The same way that she responded when he would get close to her in childhood. There is weird sexual stuff here. There's accusations of like an incestuous relationship between the two. This came to light in this book and another book as well. Social services claim Wench was overly sexualizing Anders at a young age. They provided some relief to her, but they didn't foster the children completely. So what they would do is they would have weekend parents for the kids to take some of the load off of Wench. One of these families said that Wench told them to let Anders touch his weekend dad's penis because he had only seen women's crotches and didn't know how the male body worked. I think Ron DeSantis would not be happy about this. This would be grooming, right?
Definitely not. That's exactly what that sounds like. Jesus, how old was he at that time?
8 or 9, I think.
Jesus, I hadn't seen any women's crotches at that age. Lucky bastard.
Definitely. Ugh. Yikes. As an adult, he never had any really serious relationships with women, aside from one specific case where he tried to get a bride from Eastern Europe. It didn't really work out.
It never does.
All of his friends assumed he was gay, both for his lack of relationships with women, and also he took great care in his appearance. He always groomed himself. He tried to wear like really nice clothes, and he would actually, in fact, wear makeup when he went out in public. He also had 3 plastic surgeries in adulthood. There are no reports of sexual relationships with men or women from this guy.
It definitely seems like an odd cat.
And a fucked up childhood, man. I've already mentioned this, but there is speculation that there was some sort of sexual abuse going on.
Well, I was kind of initially thinking about, I guess, the more libertine attitudes towards sexuality in like the Germanic and Nordic culture.
Sure. Maybe
just seeming a little odd to us, but yeah, when you get to the incestuous stuff, that kind of, I think, takes it out of the realm of just different cultures and, yeah, not understanding.
I think it's more to it than that. Asna doesn't really go into too much detail in the book about specific allegations, but there are numerous reports from neighbors and stuff about him being overly sexualized, however you want to interpret that. Like I said, the book doesn't go into that much detail about those claims, but there are more details out there about that. But the one that she mentioned was just the weekend dad penis thing, which seemed really strange, especially in light of the other accusations. So let's talk a little bit about the politics in Norway at the time. As anybody who's watching this show probably knows, Norway has been basically run by the Social Democrats since like the 70s. So this is Gro Harlem Brundtland. She was the first female prime minister of Norway. She's a Social Democrat, leader of the Labour Party. She is sort of a very popular figure in the left Social Democrat circles in that area. Very famous. She was also one of the primary targets of Anders in his attack.
Looks like a Margaret Thatcher cosplayer.
She's in the vein of Margaret Thatcher, but her much, much better politics, obviously. There's just a short clip of her. 87. Okay.
She's strong.
She's been pushing all her life and joined the Labour Party at 7. Gru is the daughter of a former Norwegian defense minister and World War II resistance fighter. Her parents told her she could do it all and all at once. That meant marriage at 21 while earning a medical degree in Oslo. Later, she went on to Harvard University for further studies and raised a family all at the same time.
I did not want to get into a kind of choice between being one or the other. I saw other women doing that, either getting into their home and getting their babies, or only doing the other thing. And I felt that I had to try to do both. People are not used to women deciding, women concluding, women saying, you know, straightforward, direct things. And no woman can become a leader without being able to do that.
So yeah, she did 3 terms as Prime Minister of Norway. She, in the early 2000s, she was Director General of the World Health Organization. She's done all sorts of international work, generally positive force on the world. She came to power during the 70s, the women's liberation movement. And in
it seems kind of like a prime candidate for vitriol for online incels, really.
Definitely. Yeah, well...
Like, just an empowered, positive female figure that's making waves in her respective field. Like, gotta hate her.
Well, there's a lot of misogyny still today, let alone in the fucking 70s, man.
Yeah.
Could you imagine how hard... Imagine Hillary Clinton running in the 70s.
Imagine if she went after video games. Oh, it would have been all over.
So, yeah, like we were just saying, the right-wing party is the Progress Party. They actually won an election in 1981 off of the back of her victory, basically riding a wave of misogynist sentiment, essentially. So the new government in 81 immediately set out removing interest rate caps on loans and privatizing everything. It was a very politically charged environment at the time. There were also recent influxes of immigrants, which the Progress Party also stumped on, primarily from Iraq and Syria, Middle East countries. The book follows 3 families, specifically victims' families. We're only going to talk about one here, the Kurdish family. So Bano is the daughter of, don't recall his name, her father, but they left the Kurdish region of Iraq during Al-Anfal. This is where Saddam Hussein gassed the Kurds. This was basically a Holocaust. So Saddam Hussein named this assault on the Kurds Al-Anfal after a chapter in the Quran. It means spoils of war. This was a reference to God's order to Muhammad to do battle against the infidels with all of his might. Quote, "And the unbelievers shall be herded into hell, said God to Muhammad after the first great battle for Salam in Badr in 624, in order that God may distinguish the depraved from the pure. He shall heap the depraved on upon the other, piling them all up, and deliver that pile to hell. These are truly the losers." So this is a horrifying part of history, man. She talks a little bit about it in the book. She doesn't go into too much detail, but the details she gives are horrific, man. The officers of the Iraqi army in 1988 ordered soldiers to tie the Kurds together, head to toe, blindfold them, and dump them from trucks in ready dug mass graves in the desert. Victims landed on top of the still warm bodies of dead neighbors, brothers, and other relatives and lay there waiting to be shot. So the Baathists killed as many as 182,000 Kurds between 1986 and 1989. And this is just the Iraqi crackdown. This type of shit still goes on today with fucking Turkey and the
oh sure, yeah,
Kurds.
That kind of whole region is just a hotbed for, seems like, ethnic cleansings, every decade or so.
Well, they didn't split it along ethnic lines. They split all this shit up along the lines that they could extract oil revenues from.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that shouldn't matter, right? It shouldn't matter if they have their own ethnic groups. Like, there needs to be a little bit of, I don't know, civility maybe. Is it okay? Is it proper to call for civility to people that are wanting to commit ethnic cleansing? Like, I get maybe at a certain point in time it would have mattered, but I don't know. We're in the 21st century. Just don't try to ethnically cleanse people if they're in the same country as you.
Well, that's almost like blaming the Kurds for wanting to maintain their ethnicity and their identity and their culture and stuff, you know?
No, not blame them. You know, they could do that. Just don't kill them for it. But I don't know. That's kind of a separate whole argument.
Well, see, the problem here, if you look at this red, see, this was Kurdish-controlled territory. Mm-hmm. There's a major city right here, and there's a lot of oil in this area, which is really the primary reason that Saddam Hussein gave a shit. He didn't care about the fucking Kurdish culture. He wasn't really offended by that. He wanted fucking oil revenue.
Yeah, I guess I don't know enough about the politics at the time. Like, if it's in the country, isn't he getting the oil anyways?
He was, but there was.
So I know, like, the
other
Kurdistan
forces involved. Yeah,
it's I guess semi-autonomous. So maybe that's what was going on, is they were making pushes for autonomy, and
they had set up these Peshmerga forces, these militants, to try and secure the area and create Kurdistan. They wanted fucking Kurdistan back. So he crushed them. He had to crush them. With United States help, obviously. We were funding Saddam Hussein during this period. Should be pointed out.
Sometimes you got to crush somebody, let them know what's up. You know, I don't know. What can you do?
Just listen, when the fucking police are trying to arrest you, you don't resist. All right?
Exactly.
Stop resisting.
Just stop resisting. Just stop resisting the Ba'athist regime wanting to come in and expropriate all the natural resources.
I've been telling the Palestinians this for decades. They just don't fucking listen, man.
Just stop resisting.
Me and Dershowitz have been trying to tell them.
Jesus, listen to the guy.
So Anders' first foray into breaking the law was tagging. This was a popular thing in Europe at the time, I guess, in particular Norway. I know it happened here, but I don't know. It seemed really dumb to me. I never got involved in any of this stuff.
It seems, so I was reading that part and I was like, oh, this is so incredibly mild. You put spray paint where somebody didn't want it. What a rebel.
I mean, it's sort of an anarchist action, but it's like the most weakest form of protest. Like, it's one step above the chalk in front of the fucking Supreme Court Justice's house.
Be a man. Go steal flags after 9/11. That's what I would tell you, young Anders.
Shit. Hell yeah. That's a suicide mission. Jesus Christ. Around here, buddy.
Yeah. It could have been. Somebody would come out and see us, or somebody, not us. Somebody desecrating all over their freedom rag.
So Anders Breivik has this one-track mind. He goes hard into one fucking thing, which is good. It's a good trait to have if you're involved in something productive and valuable to society. His whole goal with the tagging was to become like part of this gang that he never got invited into. He was always an outcast in every one of his endeavors in his life. He was always rejected, including this cool kids gang. So initially, when tagging started in the 80s, the Norwegian public sort of was on board with it. They thought it was cool. It's like an art form that they could be proud of internationally. There were several pieces displayed in the country's largest newspaper. But of course, the Progress Party comes in, poo-poos it. They sort of stumped up votes on the rapscallions and the criminal gangs.
Got to.
Doing this horrible vandalism. So Norway began a crackdown. They made spray paint harder to acquire. And people like Anders, taggers, would go to Denmark to get the spray paint much cheaper, because I guess what Norway did was put a tax on it, essentially, so that people were crossing the border to get fucking bunch of spray paint.
Yeah, it's exactly what the Democrats are doing here with guns, right? Trying to impede my God-given freedom to spray paint stuff by taking taxes for Chuck Schumer. David Cho does a bunch of graffiti art, and it's amazing. Seems
difficult. Like, airbrushing is hard enough, but this is airbrushing with like shittier equipment, basically.
Oh yeah, no, it really is. There's a little bit up in Louisville that I've seen here and there, and occasionally you see a really good piece, and I don't know, it's pretty wild. That looks like some really good stuff there.
After the second time, Anders Breivik was arrested for importing spray paint cans. Like, he was buying like hundreds of them, dude, because he worked a part-time job. He had money a little bit, so he would take all his money and go get all these spray paint cans. He got busted twice. The second time, his dad disowned him. Jens Breivik.
Typical story. Importing illicit spray paint. They used to not sell. There was a time when they did not sell spray paint out here in Meade County. Like when I was in high school, you could not go buy spray paint. Huh? Well, no, they would sell it. They wouldn't sell it to kids. Yeah, I had something I wanted to spray paint one time, and I was like 17. I went in. They're like, "Oh, we can't sell it to you." Why?
I always assumed it's because we were huffing it, but then I was like, well, we could just huff gas. I mean, there's no reason to huff spray paint.
Yeah.
I can't ban that. But apparently kids like using the spray paint for some,
Yeah. You can't stop us from huffing stuff, adults.
What are you thinking? You have to ban everything.
Don't you know we can huff everything?
I was just thinking, have I ever done any graffiti? And I don't think I have. Have you ever done any graffiti in your life? Like school or anything? Like permanent marker?
I mean, maybe I did some doodling on a desk with a marker. I'm sure I've done that, but certainly, like, it wasn't a thing. I probably did it a couple times, just randomly. But
there was always people who would, like, use a knife to, like, carve shit into the bathroom or whatever. And with this TikTok these days, these kids are fucking tearing up the school bathrooms, dude. Like, they're destroying the bathrooms as part of a TikTok prank. Like, they'll rip the urinals off the wall, break the doors and shit. Like, our school here shut down the bathroom for, like, weeks.
Really?
It's still shut down, yeah. Because the kids keep destroying it. And it's elementary school.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's like a nationwide thing. I tried to explain to my kids, I'm like, look, the bathrooms at school are everybody's. This is a public institution. Don't be destroying it, you fucking psychos.
Freaking psychos. I guess we don't have any examples of Anders' artwork, do we?
No, we don't. There's not a lot of, stuff recorded from the 80s, like photograph-wise or...
Failed artists. That never went bad.
All right, I have a quote here from the book about the graffiti. The police hunt changed the character of the graffiti scene. Guts started to matter more than talent. There was more daubing, less art. To produce what was called a piece, a picture of reasonable size with a number of different motifs and colors, took time, concentration, and no disturbance. A successful piece was not something you could just spray up while looking over your shoulder. It became a case of hit and run. A society gets the graffiti it deserves, commented one criminologist on the street galleries that grew ever scruffier. So that's a good point I thought I would mention.
I got to respect the commitment to the game.
Well, because of the crackdown, these taggers started making shittier and shittier art.
That's a very good point, yeah. So leave the kids alone, and you'll have these beautiful murals.
Doesn't this look better than, like, some gray-ass fucking walls anyway?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's interesting. It's colorful, It would make me stop. If I were walking by there, I would stop and look at it. I would try to, first off, read what it said, because I have a problem reading graffiti font.
Yeah, I can't. Same. And
eyes are too old.
The other benefit is it's really good for the ozone layer and the environment.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I've heard.
So after school. So Anders left drama school after the first year, instead choosing to join Oslo's commerce school. He went to business school. And he went to school there. He didn't graduate, but he did a couple of years there as well. He worked telephone sales through school. He was actually very successful at that. He was a good salesman, apparently. And this was at the time when that was a big industry, actually, telemarketing. And he would trade stocks. He, in fact, made his first $200,000, 200,000 kroner, which is $20,000 at the time. So trading stocks.
It's a good lick.
Yeah, hell yeah, at that age. After this hitting this lick, this $20,000, he quit school at the age of 18 to start his own business. He had this advertising business that he would basically try to undercut other players in the market. He sold that business and broke even, and he used that money to finance his next business, which was actually very successful. He came up with this brilliant idea to sell counterfeit diplomas online. Made millions of dollars doing this in a short period of time. He had someone in South Asia, I don't recall the exact country, working for him, and he would design the diplomas, and then Breivik would look over them, and he would sell them online to, like, I don't know who buys fake diplomas, but somebody out there does. Probably your fucking dentist has a fake diploma on the wall right now, buddy.
Almost definitely. That's why I still have a toothache.
Probably.
I mean, realistically, how many people are actually calling up the institution to see if the diploma is real?
Nobody. I never.
This is a act like you, like r/act like you belong thing. Just go in there. It's all about confidence. You show them the piece of paper. You could write it out in crayon. Doesn't matter.
Just dress the part, and you're convincing.
Yeah, act the part. Confidence.
Yeah, he eventually did get out of this business because he was getting a lot of heat from the media and from Norway. Did a couple investigations. The United States was complaining because they're a bunch of fucking crybabies about him hustling all the fake diplomas over there. So it was during this time, though, that he started his political career. He joined the Progress Party and he was unhappy with his lack of immediate ascension to the top. Basically, he wanted to be the representative on the National Assembly, and he didn't make it right away within the first like 6 months. So he gave up.
I feel that, buddy. I'm kind of the same way about things. Like, look, I'm joining this group, and I'm going to be the supreme leader, or I'm going to take all my toys and go home.
Right. That was basically it, man. It's not that he gave up, but he feels like they betrayed him. And that's what he said at the time, too.
Yeah,
like,
well, they were probably all under him. You know, he was obviously the superior, and he was upset that nobody else recognized that he was superior to them. Be upset, too.
This sort of narcissism is like every politician.
The problem with you guys is that you don't recognize how badass I am.
So he lost some money at this time in the stock market. The stock market tanked through a recession. The money he'd made from the fake diplomas, he still had half of that money, though. So he had, like, I think it was $1 million left, basically. That's the money that he would finance his next venture with. He moved back in with his mother and began playing World of Warcraft. Hardcore. Here's Anders' character. Justicar Anders Nordic. He was a mage. I don't know that much about WoW. I didn't play WoW, but apparently this UI is shitty. If this was Star Wars, then yes, this would be a very shitty UI. I don't know what that translates to in WoW, but he also joined the Freemasons through one of his mother's uncles or some shit. He didn't become involved, although he was very hyped about it initially. He didn't really get involved because he was too busy raiding. He would just raid fucking 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. He was trying to be like one of the top he eventually did join the top server, but he didn't immediately get invited to the top guild on the server to raid, so he got upset. But yeah, he spent 5 years glued to the screen in his mother's bedroom.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
After making millions on the internet, dude. Could you imagine?
Obviously, the guy's got potential. Obviously, he's got some smarts.
Yes.
And yeah, I don't know. I think we've talked about this before. I never went down this rabbit hole of playing these games online like that. So I can't relate to it. I don't know what the impulse is like, but Jesus Christ, it seems like if you want to be the top at something, be the top at something worth being the top of.
It's hard to explain to people who have never done this, but when you spend, like when I was raiding, we would raid, I think 2 nights a week, and we would raid for like 5 or 6 hours twice a week. And it would take several weeks, like, of raiding those 5 or 6 hours twice a week, like 10 hours a week, say, maybe 3 weeks, 30 hours you'd put into killing this one boss. And when you finally kill that fucking boss, everybody does everything right. You get the lucky RNG. Everything goes perfectly. You finally kill him. You get the loot drops, because that's what you're after, that awesome, sweet gear. When you finally kill him, man, the feeling of elation is so powerful. It's addicting, man. It's very addicting.
Oh, I'm sure it is, but I don't know. Like I said, I feel like I would maybe do that for leisure, and I would have tried to find something else to focus my energies on. You know, if I had the same entrepreneurial mindset that he had.
I don't know if it was an entrepreneurial mindset or he just had a one-track mind.
He apparently has a gift for being successful. It seems like.
Yeah.
Or he's got that. Yeah, I guess the one-track mindset that pushes him to excel in whatever he's doing, or to at least try to excel.
Right. I think it's a desirable trait in an individual. Like, when you see some kid that can play fucking piano incredibly well, it's amazing. Like, most kids don't have the attention span. Trust me. Like, my daughter, there's no fucking way, dude. She's not practicing piano 2 hours a day.
I think the key with this is maybe the social group. The mindset is a good mindset to have. It's the correct mindset. And he's obviously wanting to rise to the top of these certain social groups. And he just kind of got led astray. Like, this is not a social group that you should really care about being at the top of.
I'm going to have to defend the gamers here, because it's so hard to explain to someone who's has never done this, but MMOs are not like other games. You spend so many hours, you put so many hours into it that you don't want to leave. You don't want to leave the game because you've invested so much into it. And it's very rewarding, as I mentioned. I feel like you've missed out. I mean, you're lucky you didn't get involved, but I feel like you've also missed out on this aspect of life.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I did. I've seen people that have gotten sucked just completely into these things, and it's, you know, you lose them for a few months when it happens.
So this is when he started stumbling across these right-wing websites. He got into the whole internet, the early days of the internet. He was involved with the forum community a little bit back then, but he sort of went along the right-wing path, unfortunately. Here is a quote from the book. He is speaking to his friends one day. The Muslims will take power in Europe because they have so many bloody children. They pretend to be subordinating themselves, but they'll soon be in the majority. Look at the statistics. The Labour Party has ruined our country. It's feminized the state and made it into a matriarchy. And more than anything, it's made it a place where it's impossible to get rich. Any of that sound familiar?
Sounds like Jordan Peterson.
Sounds like Tucker Carlson.
Tucker Carlson?
The feminization.
Yeah, that's what really, I don't know. It's basically the same narrative that's kind of across the whole right-wing echo chamber, right? Like you hear these same themes just kind of repeated wherever you go, you know, whether it be maybe not so much by the actual, I guess you'd call them pundits, the presenters, but certainly like if you ever talk to the people that listen to Ben, like this is what you would hear if you talked to somebody that was a fan of Ben Shapiro or Tim Pool or Tucker Carlson or whomever. It's just all the same crap. This is what they're worried about.
Well, apparently this is the same bullshit talking points for the last fucking 40 years. Because this was...
Hey, when you got a winner, stick with it.
Talking about the white replacement, the damn feminization. That's what gets me. That and the cultural Marxism. Anders Breivik always liked to talk about all this cultural Marxism. I thought this was a newer talking point, but apparently not. Apparently this has been going on at least since the 90s in Norway.
Yeah, I don't think I'd heard cultural Marxism. Well, probably not until right around Jordan Peterson come out.
Yeah, me either. I wonder if Jordan Peterson got this from Anders Breivik. That would be quite a lineage of thought.
One can only hope.
So yeah, he had half the $2 million. So basically had $1 million to go down the rabbit hole. He purchased a farm in Valstua. This is about an hour north of Oslo. This is this is the actual farmhouse.
Pretty countryside.
Oh yeah, he started off with the Gates of Vienna website, and then he went on to Jihad Watch and finally Stormfront. So yeah, this is the Valstua farmhouse. This is where he prepared for the attack. His neighbors came and visited a few times. They were wondering why their fields were fallow, because he had told them he was going to do tuber farming. I believe it was tuber farming.
Mm-hmm.
But his fields went fallow. He was growing heather and Timothy wild, and he kept getting these offers to help him with his farm. This young, inexperienced farmer who had just moved in, and he would always turn him away.
He's just inside, pale, covered in Mountain Dew and sweat.
Oh, he was all jacked up on roids too. He was juicing big time during this.
Oh,
period
was he?
Of his life. Yeah.
All jacked up on steroids and Mountain Dew. Nowhere to go.
I don't recall Mountain Dew, but
it's definitely Mountain Dew. I know his type. They all drink Mountain Dew.
I think it was ECA stack, which is ephedrine, caffeine, aspirin, and then a bunch of roids.
Jesus.
So at nighttime, he was boiling sulfuric acid down because the smoke would be to a dead giveaway if he did that through the day. And apparently he was trying to produce anhydrous sulfuric acid for this bomb. I don't know how you build bombs, but I guess that's part of the process. During the day, he had like a dozen blenders set up to crush the ammonium nitrate pellets, because you had to crush them into a powder to mix with the like aluminum powder and shit. And it took him a long ass time to do all this, and it was a pretty grueling process. It details in the book. It's very interesting.
Yeah,
tons of ammonium nitrate, dude. The bomb he was building was like 8 times bigger than the Oklahoma City bomber.
Really? Oklahoma City was 500 to 1,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate. I want to say something like that.
I didn't write down the exact, but I believe it was multiples of what McVeigh had done. The methodology was the same though. It was the same methodology than the fertilizer bomb.
2,100 pounds. Yeah, it's crazy how easy access you have to people. I guess everyone has to one of the most potent bomb making materials in existence outside of the military grade stuff.
It was a lot of work, though. It was like a ton of work. It was a long process, and it was.
I imagine if you're blending up a ton of ammonium nitrate pellets in a blender, Like, his stuff doesn't weigh anything. I'm imagining, like, I've got ammonium nitrate. I've had it. You know, I have a farm here, and it's very light. So I imagine like a blender. If you even got like one of them big blenders, you might get like a few ounces in there of the pellets.
Initially, his plan was to spread the pellets out on the floor of the barn.
Yeah.
And then he had bought some heavy dumbbells to roll across to crush the pellets, but it didn't work. So he started buying all these blenders, these commercial blenders.
Oh my God.
It took him weeks and weeks, dude. I think it took him 2 months in total to actually build the bomb, which turned out not to be particularly useful. I mean, most of the people he killed, he didn't use the bomb to kill. The bomb he was obsessed with the bomb, but it really wasn't the most successful part of his plan. Although it did produce a very awesome photograph, which we'll check out in a little bit. On Friday, July 22nd, 2011, this was the day of the attack, the commander of the Norwegian Anti-Communist Resistance Movement, a.k.a. Anders Breivik, also the only member of the Norwegian Anti-Communist Movement, parked his heavily laden van in front of the offices of Prime Minister Jens Stoltenberg. He parked outside of the front of the office of the Labour Party, basically. A few minutes later, the bomb detonated with an enormous pressure wave, killing 8 people and injuring 209. There wasn't a whole lot of people in the area at the time, so this is the initial aftermath of the bomb.
I mean, this is exactly what Timothy McVeigh did, right? Like, just park a van out in front of a building with a bunch of ammonium nitrate, and I don't know. It's kind of scary that this doesn't happen more often, really. There's
got to be a better way to build a bomb. It seems like a lot of work and a big ass, like, he overloaded this van. He's lucky he didn't break the axles on the van. This thing weighed fucking tons.
You don't have, I don't know why he was crushing it. You don't have to crush it. Maybe it makes it a little bit more reactive. But you can just use the full pellets. I mean, this is what tannerite is. You know, tannerite's, for exploding targets. If you've ever seen them or made them, it's legal to make on your property for use on your property. You can buy kits of the stuff, and you don't have to crush anything up. You just add the aluminum powder to the pellets, and it'll...
Just from experience with chemical reactions, you typically want to pulverize to a powder any sort of reagents that you're going to use for... I'm surprised that would work with the full pellets.
Yeah, I don't know, like I said, what the...
It would work better. It would work better the way he did it. And
probably, yeah.
He goes hard, dude. He goes fucking hard.
Well, here's the thing. Just buy twice as much ammonium nitrate, and then you skip all the dirty work. Get the same result.
So, here is the actual photo of Lena Nesner. Gosh, these Nordic names, dude. Lena Nersnaes.
Nersnaes.
Shut up.
Nersnaes.
That's her name. A 50-year-old legal advisor was in her office on the 11th floor when a car bomb ripped through the central Oslo, killing 8 people. The force of the blast shattered a nearby wooden window, sending a 12-inch splinter through her chin and up through her skull. This is a crazy photo. I hadn't seen this previously. Check this out, dude.
Oh my goodness. Oh, you can't show me stuff like that, James.
It entered right below her ear here. You can kind of see it.
Oh my goodness.
So let's go on to Utøya here. This is the island where he conducted the second half of his 2-part operation. Here it is. Pretty cool. It was given to the Labour Party. Pretty awesome. Let me just say, Norway's badass, first of all. See all the tents? This is actual footage at the time, I believe. So Anders Breivik leaves the van with the bomb in it, gets in another van, heads toward Utøya here, where Gro Harlem was giving a speech. Or it's pronounced Gru. I've always said Gro because that's how I read it. Sorry, Norwegians. She was giving a speech. So this is a small island, 26 acres in total, and this is located 1,600 feet off of Norway's coast, 24 miles northwest of Oslo. Every summer, the Labour Party has a camp here. They used to until Breivik arrived here dressed as a police officer. The last thing he had ordered for his mission was a police uniform. He told the ferrymen that he was sent to protect the island amid further threats, because nobody had caught him yet, obviously. They didn't know who they were even looking for at this point. The police had fucked up the APB. So he tells the ferryman, hey, I was sent here to secure the island. So the ferryman ferries him across with this. He has luggage, and heavy-ass luggage thing he wheels onto the fucking ferry with and full of ammunition.
Nothing going on here, guys. Don't.
Golly, dude, so many people fucked up along the way here.
Well, it's good to know that cops are incompetent everywhere.
Golly, man. 650 people, mostly youths. There were some adults here, but this was a youth camp. They were all somewhat older, though. Like, I think the youngest was like 12. But he messed up the timing. Due to the rain, Gro Harlem had to leave. She finished her speech, and she had already left. So one of his targets was Gro, obviously. So he missed that. But he arrived a couple hours later. This is not the uniform he was wearing at the time. This is an actual photograph that he added to his manifesto.
That's a photograph? That looks like a CGI face. Is this a PSYOP, James?
If you go on BitChute, there are many allegations that this was a PSYOP.
It looks CGI. It really, maybe it's just the photo, but his face does not look real. It looks like a PlayStation 3 level character animation.
Well, he's young. He's all juiced up, so he's all.
And why
puffy.
does he have 2 flashlights on there?
One's a laser sight. This is a laser sight.
No, those are flashlights.
No, this is a flashlight.
Bayonet. He's got a bayonet. What are you going to bayonet?
You don't have a bayonet?
I got a bipod. No bayonet, though.
The bayonet's for when you run out of bullets, man. Everybody knows that. That's what they said about the Soviets. The Soviets, they didn't have bullets. They just had the bayonets.
Yeah, I'm forgetting, in the 2A community, the Second Amendment community, there's a term for this kind of guy. And basically, I mean, it's really appropriate. It refers to the guy that has too much money and wants to LARP, and so he buys every attachment imaginable to put on his gun because he thinks it makes him look cooler. And then, of course, you also have to get the vest and stuff like that. I guess it's a LARPer. I think that's what it is. It's just, yeah, if you're a 2A LARPer, you get every attachment imaginable to put on your gun.
Isn't every gun person a LARPer?
Yes, but there's levels. And one level discriminates on the other level.
Right. So the police made several key mistakes during this time. He drove almost an hour to get out here, and then they let him across on the ferry. Not the police, the ferryman. But they didn't put out a proper APB. There was a lot of communication errors with the police departments communicating with each other. Nobody knew what he looked like, even though there was an eyewitness from the initial Oslo bombing who had told the police who to look for and what he was dressed like and everything. But they like some fucking clerk put it on a sticky note and put it next to a police officer who was on the phone, and it never got across. APB was never put out correctly. There was also a mistake by the police as far as crossing. They were supposed to cross at the initial ferry location, but somehow some officer at some point made the decision to move the location of the crossing to some other place. The police refused several offers for boats to help them get across to the island during the shooting. They refused those because they had their own boat, this fucking blow-up boat. They had to blow up, and then they got it halfway out there. The boat was overloaded, and the boat was sinking, and somebody had to come rescue the fucking police.
Oh my god,
it was a total shit show, dude. Meanwhile, they can hear the fucking gunfire from the island.
They can hear the shooting going on while they're out there in their little dinghy.
Fucking dipshits, dude. So he had roughly an hour to hunt down all the cultural Marxists.
Jesus.
Here's a quote from the book about this time period. This is a group on the Lover's Path that were gunned down here. There were 11 of them. They all did what the one boy said. If he had said run, perhaps they would have run, but he said lie down. They lay close together, their heads turned towards the forest and the dark trunks of the trees, legs against the fence. Some of them huddled up against each other. A couple were lying in a heap. 2 girls, best friends, were holding hands. Then they heard footsteps approaching. From here, he looked calmly down at them and asked, "Where the hell is he?" Nobody answered. Nobody moved. The man on the rise started from the right. The first shot entered the head of the boy lying at the end. Then he aimed at the back of her head. Her wavy chestnut brown hair was wet and shiny in the rain. The shot went right through her head and into her brain. He fired again. The boy with his arm around her was hit. The bullet went through the back of his head. A girl near the end of the row caught sight of his muddy black boots. She was holding hands with her best friend. Their faces were turned to each other. A bullet seared through the crown, the skull, and the frontal lobe of her childhood friend's head. The girl's body jerked. The twitchings ran into her hand. Her grip slackened. From somewhere came a weak moaning. There were faint groans and a few gurgling sounds, then only a little squeak or two. Before long, there was silence. So what basically happened on this island, this tiny island with 650 kids on it, He was dressed as the police, and oftentimes what he would do was say, "I'm here to save you guys from the shooter," and then the kids would run toward him, and he would just fucking gun them down, dude. This group here of 11 on Lover's Path, they were playing dead, essentially, and that's when he says, "Where the hell is he?" They're asking him. He's asking them if they have basically, where's the killer is? Because they all know there's a killer on the loose at this point. And they try to play dead. He shoots them all in the head, kills them.
Jesus.
One of these kids, these 11 do survive. Yeah, it's a horrifying story, dude. And
this is seriously, it's out of a horror movie. Like, I don't know. It's insane. Yeah, and this is, gotta say it for American culture. People here know what to do when there's an active shooter, at the very least. You know, over there, they don't have any clue of what you're supposed to do. They don't know you gotta run, hide in a tree. Practice makes perfect, and we got it down pat here in US of A.
Nobody makes better shooting victims than Americans, survival rate-wise, I guess. So this is the CCTV. This is what he was dressed as, is basically full police gear here. He's got the body armor. He's got the police helmet. He has a police badge sewn into the arm of his uniform, but it doesn't say police. It says like cultural Marxist hunter or something like that.
Oh my God.
He made all these uniforms and shit. So yeah, he played this game where he would sometimes he would try to shoot the kids in the head as a game, and they would they would try to dodge him. Usually he would just shoot center mass though, and then when they were on the ground, he would finish them off with a couple shots to the head. He made sure to kill them. In total, he murdered 69 people on the island of Utøya.
Nice.
In 1 hour. It took police so long to arrive that he had tried actually multiple times to call the authorities and turn himself in because he had, I guess, killed enough people. So he immediately surrenders to authorities when the cops do show up. So he claimed after he was in custody, he told the police that there were impending attacks by other individuals involved in his terrorist organization, other cells, sleeper cells under his command. And he used this as leverage to negotiate terms with the police for all these amenities. Because, Norway police and all.
Norway police. Norway penal system. I'm going to have to try that next time. Get caught for a DUI. There are other drunk drivers on the road waiting for my signal.
Yeah. They're drunk as hell just waiting.
They're drunk as hell just waiting. If I don't make the call, they start driving.
Right.
I'm going to need 2 lunches and 2 suppers every day. For the duration of the time I'm in here.
Double trays across the board.
Double trays and $20 canteen a week, at least.
1 honey bun per week.
Unlimited envelopes.
He negotiated 3 cells in jail/prison. And he was able to keep most of these amenities for basically 3 years until all the court proceedings were finished. And then once he became custody of the actual prison system, they took most of his shit away. Well, while he was in custody of the police, he did have access to a lot of these amenities. So he had 3 cells, 1 for exercise, and he had like a treadmill and some like other gym equipment in there. They wouldn't let him have weights though, which is what he really wanted. So he was complaining about not having the weights. One of the cells was for work. They gave him a PC with no internet access, so he could write his manifesto stuff. He admitted to guilt, so the trial itself was very bizarre. He had multiple rounds of psychological interrogation, of course. The first group claimed or made a diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia, which would have made him not responsible in the eyes of the law. The next group of psychiatrists evaluated him and determined that he had dissocial personality disorder with narcissistic traits.
Yeah, I would say so. Very dissocial.
Yeah, this second diagnosis, again, would leave him not culpable. It would make him insane, essentially. And the entire trial...
It still doesn't mean, though, that he would get out of the penal system. Like, it just... Really, all they're determining with that is, like, what kind of institution he's going to go to, right?
Basically. Well, he would... It's a different process. He wouldn't be sentenced to 21 years. He would be sent to the psychiatric care center, and then he would get out based on whenever he was cured. Okay. Sort of like we do it here. So it's not like he would be sentenced to 21 years to a psychiatric institution. They would just send him to the psychiatric institution as insane, and then if he ever became sane, they would let him out. Which in the United States doesn't really happen. You just stay in there forever, basically. Yeah.
Here you just... I think generally, like, the sentences tend to be longer if you go to a psychiatric institution.
I'm not sure.
Effectively. And generally the treatment's a lot worse, too. I don't know. I guess there's this idea that you're going to get off easier if you get found
I've heard
insane?
both ways. Yeah, I've heard both ways. There's a good documentary on Netflix that follows a group of people convicted but declared insane and sent to the insane asylum, essentially. It's like a penal psychiatric center. It's really good. And it follows them. It's like 4 floors, and the saner you get, the higher up you get, and then eventually you get out. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe the most crazy are at the top, and then as
you work your way down and you get out. Huh.
You progress through the treatment. It's so interesting to watch. You can see that they are hearing voices in their fucking head, bro. You can see it. It's so strange, dude. But they have to figure out and work through and understand that they're not really there. And they take all the medication and stuff, but they still hear the fucking voices, man. It's crazy. So interesting.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called, but it's you should watch it.
I'm just still astounded at the level of entitlement that I guess they have in other countries about, what kind of treatment you can expect from the police and from the penal system in general. Like, I would just assume, certainly if that happened in the U.S., he would just get shot. They would, cops would come in blazing. They'd probably kill a couple innocent people on the way. Who gives a shit?
Shoot each other.
Yeah, they'd be shooting at each other. and then he would just, if he lived, which is very doubtful, he would just get beaten up. They would throw him in protective custody for his own protection, and they would just deprive him of his medicine and deprive him of any semblance of humanity, I guess.
Oh, yeah. You kill 77 people, and then you get arrested, and your first response is, I better get the things that I want. Listen here, buddy. You know who I am? Like, no, that's not happening in the U.S. Say what you want about our criminal justice system, but if you treat everyone like shitbags, then it guarantees that the shitbags are going to get treated like shit too, which is good, I guess.
Say what you want about the U.S. criminal justice system. We know how to dehumanize people. We had a guy last time I was in, one of the guards, and he liked to come by and he would spray a little bit of pepper spray into the beanhole into our pod. He just thought it was funny. So
this, the whole Breivik trial, essentially was very bizarre because it was his lawyer, this Lipstead, who was actually, he had been acquainted with earlier in his life. He actually shared an office with him at one point when he was running his diploma scam business. Lipstead was defending Breivik. It was Breivik's lawyer, but he was arguing on behalf of Breivik that Breivik was culpable. He wasn't crazy. He had done these things in a politically motivated way, and he was going to be held responsible, goddammit, one way or another. And the prosecutor, the entire trial, was trying to convince the jury that he was insane and should not be held liable. Very bizarre. This would never happen in the United States. It's hard to even comprehend a fucking prosecutor acting in good faith. Seems totally beyond the pale to me.
It's almost as if they're trying to reform people, and it's not about just getting a conviction for the most amount of years. It's how can we fix this broken member of our society? Stupid Nordic people.
They hadn't got the fucking memo yet. You have to only appoint the psycho fucking sociopaths as prosecutors. That's how you get convictions.
Yep.
There he is, old Breivik. So this is trial. This is a trial day 1, the first day of the trial. This is a super cut from the Telegraph. So he shows up in court, and notice here, this isn't the Heil Hitler. This isn't the Zeke Heil with the open
that's
open hand. This is a closed fist because he is the commander, and this is his cell, his operational group's Heil. This is their own version, right, with the closed fist. It's a Zeke Heil with a closed fist. The Norwegian anti-communist resistance movement.
And I gotta say, he's a pretty sharp-looking character. He's trim, well-groomed, got a nice suit on. I'm kind of jealous. We did our little segment about white supremacists here in Kentucky, and they were not a good-looking bunch.
No.
My name is Ron Edwards. I'm the Imperial Wizard of the Imperial Clans of America, IK as we call it.
Yeah, well, what happened to the fucking Nordic genes? I thought these guys had the same genes.
Yeah, they don't. They dropped them somewhere along the way.
White people are not all the same everywhere, are they?
No, this is pure Nordic blood right here. It's well-made people.
I do not. This is Anders Breivik. I'm going to translate here. I do not recognize the Norwegian courts. You have received your mandate from political parties which support multiculturalism. Furthermore, it is known that you are a personal friend of Han Harlem, the sister of former PM and Labour Party leader Gro Harlem Brundtland. So the judge was the sister of Gro. And Norwegian women, man.
Ja, Breivik, da har du hørt statsadvokaten lese opp tiltalen mot deg, og du har hatt tid på forhånd til å sette deg grundig inn I denne. Og da spør jeg deg, erklærer du deg helt...
You have heard the charges, do you plead guilty?
Denne tiltalen?
I acknowledge the acts, but I do not plead guilty, and I claim that I was doing it in self-defense. They show his propaganda video. We can look through it real quick at the end, but this
Rise of cultural Marxism, Islamic colonization.
Yeah, this is... He made this movie in Windows Movie Maker and released it via email to like thousands of people, along with his written manifesto, which was a book. But he mostly plagiarized his book from like other bloggers, essentially. but he made this movie here. It's a slideshow. They show it in court. And this is him crying to his own video in court.
It's beautiful.
Not to the deaths of the 77 fucking kids that he gunned down, but to the dumb propaganda video with the Nordic music behind it.
Well, it was probably pretty moving.
Very hard.
Well, I'll let you be the judge, because we'll take a look at it a little bit.
Okay.
On the other hand, and this is also very important.
So interesting. Very bizarre, though. Just weird to have the defense lawyer, like... I'm not sure, but it's just from reading the book and my interpretation of it, it seems like that he would have had it a lot easier if he had just played crazy, man. But he tried to convince all these psychologists that he was completely sane. This was a politically motivated thing. And he thinks that the movement is going to pick up steam, which maybe he's right. We'll see. And then he'll be let out of prison, sort of like what was the South African guy, Mandela. Yeah, and he'll be the president of the new white race country society thing that he's building. So yeah, this is January 2022. His parole hearing, because the highest possible sentence in Norway is 21 years, and you are eligible for parole in 10 years in Norway. Now, after his 21 years, they can give him an additional 5 years if they deem him still a threat to society, and they can continue that for the rest of his life, essentially. So we'll see what happens, but this is his parole hearing in 2022. He's changed to the actual Nazi salute here. He's definitely lost a lot of weight in prison. Holy shit.
Once again, I said it earlier on, I'll say it now. You got to respect the commitment. He's sticking with it. What, he's been in prison 10
years, and he's still throwing up the Nazi Heil Hitler, dude.
That's, at a certain point, like, prison's getting a little old. Maybe I should try to get out of this.
Yeah, no shit, dude.
What do y'all want me to say? What do you want me to do?
Everybody's so nice to him, too, in the courtroom. I don't know what this said. Stop your gender... What does it say? Stop your genocide against our white nations.
Oh.
He has, like, signs. He has a sign on his briefcase.
Dude, you live in Norway. That's the whitest place you could ever be.
Not white enough.
You're going to be fine. You're going to be the last bastion of whiteness when everywhere else falls. You're basically like, Norway is like the Minas Tirith of Earth. Everywhere else will fall to Sauron's horde of brown people. And then there'll be that last shining beacon of Norway, standing tall. And hopefully, I guess he's just waiting on the Rohirrim to come and let him out, essentially.
I guess so. Basically, yeah, that's pretty much it. He was worried about losing the blue eyes. You know, it's a recessive gene. It's gonna be wiped out. We're gonna lose the blue eyes and the blonde hair and all that shit. So therefore, we should massacre a bunch of white children. That's it. That brings us basically to today. This was January 2022. One of the other families that Asna covers in the book is that of Viljar. This was a victim who was shot in the head and survived. So this is Viljar.
They all look alike. They need some other genetics to come in there, and so they all don't look like cousins anymore.
So this is his statement about what he remembers after being shot in the head by Anders Breivik. Then I heard this crazy whistling sound in my right ear, and I found myself by the edge of the water. I tried to get up several times. I was a bit sort of Bambi on the ice, you know, and I called out to my brother. But then I decided the best thing was to just lie down in the fetal position somewhere. I curled myself around a rock on the shoreline and stayed there. I was conscious the whole time. It was strange being shot. It didn't hurt. It was just unpleasant. A new kind of pain. I lay there and started trying to get my bearings. I looked at my fingers and saw they were only hanging on by scraps of skin. I realized I couldn't see out of one eye, and that something must be wrong there. I started running my hand over my head, and eventually, I came across something soft, and then I touched my brain. I was feeling my own brain. It was weird, so I took my hand away pretty quick. I remember Simon Sabo was laying there, but I didn't know then that he was dead. I remember I talked to him, said it would be all right, and we'd get through it together. So this is from his testimony in court. A lot of these kids testified in court. He was in a coma for, I don't remember exactly how long. He was in a coma forever. It fucked him up really bad. Yeah, it's pretty harrowing. He, when the police arrived, they had to like put his brain back in his head, and then he wrapped it up with a towel to get him to the. Oh my God! Yeah, crazy dude. We're not gonna watch. This is 12 minutes. We'll just skip through it. But
okay.
I'm digging the music. I do like the Iron Cross. I used to have one of these shaved into my head.
It's really setting the tone for the film.
Yeah. Rise of cultural Marxism, Islamic colonization. This is, Jordan Peterson has fucking seen this video, dude. This is where he got all his...
Oh, for sure.
They're showing the Soviet flag over the Reichstag. Soviet efforts to implement cultural Marxism in Western Europe began immediately after their World War II victory. Stalin was not a cultural Marxist. He fucking hated gays and shit. He hated Jews. Killed Trotsky. I didn't see this. Look at this. That's great.
He's got the Che Guevara shirt on.
Before, it's like some fucking fat kid.
Yeah.
With blonde hair, and after, it's like...
Got the Karl Marx haircut.
Yeah, it's Karl Marx as a cartoon with a hammer and sickle and a Che Guevara shirt. That's great. It's just a bunch of memes. Like, this is a slideshow of memes. Yeah, this is like early memes from like the early internet days.
Communist Holocaust, 100 million plus dead.
That's a made-up number.
Systematically ignore, misrepresent key historical events, glorify Marxist regimes, vilify anti-Marxists.
See, this 100 million number, I don't know if we've talked about this on the show before, but this is a number from the Black Book of Communism. Well, we actually did talk about this on the mold bug thing. This number's bullshit. This guy is completely debunked. The other authors on the book even recanted, and he added to this number like 40 million of these are people that were never even born, because he's counting 100 million and including in that reduction in birth rates. It's like, it's so ridiculous. And this is what Jordan Peterson says too. He says this 100 million number.
Yeah.
Systematically deconstruct European I tell you what, these fucking Kurds, man, fleeing Saddam Hussein's gas attacks.
Asshole. This is all coordinated. They know what they're doing.
They're planning. Yeah, they planned this out. They're systematically deconstructing European ethnic groups through mass immigration.
Saddam, you come in, give us a pretext so we can leave, gas a bunch of us, and buddy, we're heading straight to Norway. We gotta fuck the blue eyes out of these people.